Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Friday, September 3rd. Let's hop in. There was a YouTuber, he's not a video game YouTuber, who recently has decided to just do a quick 180 away from putting streams on YouTube. Um, because, yeah, his was more of a maker YouTube thing where he builds things and makers. I mean, you're gonna, as a maker, if you make a good project that is like you're gonna take a month minimum. You're not going to come out with a video every couple days or anything like that. And see, his thought process was definitely to have streams to make more content to satisfy the the people who probably thought they wanted more content, but then the quality drops terribly down. And I will fully admit that live streaming Shadowverse and looking at video game news is a pretty low quality product in my mind. Although, in all fairness, my pre recorded footage is not particularly high quality either. There's just a limiting budget there and a limiting amount of time I want to waste making, polishing, and editing and doing jump cuts and things like that. But yeah, so he stopped streaming and then he moved all his streams to Twitch and made a second channel. Arguably, that should be what I should do. Like, it's just not really worth my effort to try to maintain two different channels. One with just live streams and one with pre-recorded footage. I definitely would consider that if you could get over that initial hump. If I had 1,000 subscribers on my main channel, then I guess I could probably at that point start to think about moving over live streams to a different channel. It would be insane to move the pre-recorded footage. But yeah, that is something that comes up, and I think about it every now and then, that there is some awkwardness definitely in, if you're subscribed to my channel, as far as what you end up getting when you actually get a notification, if you get a notification, whether it's a live stream or whether it's pre-recorded footage. Like, I've never really wanted the live stream content to exist at all. It helps definitely to cover video game news and be more informed, because I've crammed that aspect in. Otherwise, I would be completely uninformed, or nearly completely uninformed, as far as what new games are coming out. But yeah, it also takes up a ridiculous amount of time to just consistently play Shadowverse or Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering Arena, any of those, any collectible card game or just game that has daily requirements ends up taking a ridiculous amount of time. Whereas more personally, I would say I'd probably only play Shadowverse like once a week. Which, I suppose that's a thought. It would be kind of crazy, but, you know, maybe instead of focusing in on one game, you focus in on 3 different collectible card games. One on Monday, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. I really can't change that schedule. I guess we're trying Dragoncraft here, if we can win. Free entry. Let's see. Default deck. And this is Swordcraft. So which one is the default deck for Dragoncraft? This one. Okay. Yeah, but you really wouldn't get anywhere with a collectible card game if you were playing 3 different collectible card games on 3 different days, or just 3 different games in general. Yep. And it still needs to be a collectible card game or something very slow that I can still talk to people on the chat if people are chatting, and talk about video game news. So, yep. I would almost have an idea that, since I've noticed now we have polls, that I almost have the idea of just running a poll every single stream, as far as like, hey, do you like the video game news or do you like the Shadowverse news? But really, that would just be an implication that people, particularly the loud, very ecstatic minority of people would push me in one direction or another. For the accountability section, we're playing the Binding of Isaac Rebirth still a little bit, but I am very quickly getting towards the end there. There's very, very little left to unlock. Super Meat Boy, Bandage Girl, both easier to unlock with Afterbirth, Afterbirth Plus, or Repentance DLC. So there definitely is an argument to not even try and get that. There is an achievement for getting like all the secrets and all the achievements done. And that is about the only thing that I think might be easier to get in Rebirth alone versus all the other benefits to skip things. Because it's incredibly difficult to get the Lost and the 6 items related to the Lost in Rebirth, whereas way easier to get the Lost unlocked in Afterbirth. And you can still get all the other achievements, including getting all of the achievements with the exclusion of the Lost achievements, if in Rebirth. So theoretically you could do it, but you still would have to struggle fairly hard to get Super Meat Boy and Super Bandage Girl done. I don't have the donation machine fully at the max, but I don't know if I'm actually going to get it to that point at this rate. I am a victim in a lot of ways of my own success and my own skill from having played the original Binding of Isaac for 100 plus episodes, in that I just was able to succeed in a lot of runs, and by being able to succeed in a lot of runs very early, it kind of undid the level of struggle they were expecting me to have. Like, one item unlocks when you have 100 deaths. I have like 60 deaths. It's unlikely I'm going to get up to 100 deaths without just intentionally trying to die. And you can intentionally try to die to try and unlock the Lost, and that would also unlock a item, but yeah, that's a weird way to go about playing it. And then the boss rush is becoming increasingly a problem, in that I am just not succeeding at all as far as getting to the boss rush. I've not gotten, when really trying to get it done, I'm not getting there. So yeah, let alone actually defeating the boss rush, which, yeah, and playing on hard and getting completion marks for playing on hard are all things that are in Afterbirth. So yeah, unless I can get someone to friend me on Steam and gift me the Afterbirth DLC, I imagine by the end of next week I'll be done with the Binding of Isaac. I desperately need to schedule things over the weekend, also need to upload things. The Isaac episodes are 2-3 hours long each, so that they're taking up a lot of hard drive space. So yeah, that's where we are at, I suppose, at this point with the Binding of Isaac. What some of it is going to come down to is if I can go through one day and make 2 or 3 episodes in one day and unlock at least one thing, I guess I'll feel somewhat satisfied to continue playing. But if I go through it one day and I haven't unlocked anything that or made any real progress to unlocking anything, then I think at that point it's time to do a one more run, just try each character on hard. Particularly in Rebirth, I don't think the difficulty is that different. The boss rush is randomized in the Afterbirth DLC, or one of the DLCs at least. They all kind of merge together. And frankly, looking at what Afterbirth adds and what Afterbirth Plus adds, and then what Repentance adds as far as achievements, Repentance is basically very, very close to the Binding of Isaac 2. It is just a whole new game, changing a lot of things, where Afterbirth and Afterbirth Plus, not so much. They're just adding a few more items, they're adding a few more enemies, a little bit of variety. And I don't know if there's enough momentum in the creators of the Binding of Isaac to move forward with Isaac even more and just make more content, even though there may still to this point be a rabid demand amongst this fandom for more content. I was thinking if they tried to make like an Isaac that was more like a Bayonetta game, that would be probably beyond their skill, but it would be kind of interesting, certainly. Bayonetta fights angels of a different art style and theme, certainly, but it is basically the same thing. And if Bayonetta as a 3D action beat 'em up game with combos and all of that was going into a room that was like a large arena room, which that's basically what Bayonetta was. You'd get into an area and usually there was a magical circle arena around you keeping you in a fight. That wouldn't be too different from Isaac. Although once you start going to 3D graphics and a 3D art style, maybe you have to put so much animation into it, and that having hundreds of items modify Bayonetta's attacks may be unrealistic. But yeah.
Now the fight begins.
I don't know what else to even really say about Isaac at this point. I'm running out of things to say, even making the pre-recorded footage, which is definitely a good indicator that it's getting close to time to wrap up. And yeah, we'll move on for that. Speaking of moving on, my goal today, as always, is the same, so barely even needs to be said that we're going to try and get through all the video game news. Since it's Friday, we'll try and leave the games that came out over the weekend and try to be done with this somewhat fast. And I think specifically, since I'm not even logging on, obviously, on the off days to reroll daily quests. So if I had logged in yesterday and just rerolled the daily quests, I could have gotten away from these Dragoncraft challenges, which I don't have a high chance of succeeding at. So yeah, I am experimenting with a modification to hide another Chrome extension, which I use a lot of them to hide scroll bars. We can see when we're looking here that the scroll bar is still using, I believe, the minimal scroll bar extension, which I didn't uninstall to show a scroll bar, but then hide it. My goal was to get rid of the one at the bottom. And when you hover over something that's a link, Chrome does not let you turn off the link previews at the bottom of the left of the screen. I could certainly clip that out and just frame it so that doesn't show. It doesn't really matter though. Like, so what the new scroll bar hider seems to do is put just a tiny little red pixel that fills up across the top as a horizontal bar, and as you scroll down it fills up. And yeah, you can see here that is kind of more annoying, so I would have to clip out that pixel, which seems to just be an overlay pixel, because yeah, it does seem to be transparent in the background. So I just installed this app, and I'll try and see if there's some adjustments there that can happen, because now I have two scroll bars. Let's see, we can, I guess, talk about these games. Here we have one called Swallow the Sea on Steam, and yeah, this looks weird, but it doesn't look like a game I really would want to play. There's also something weird about Steam, in that it sometimes just makes my screen black out, and it's no other thing does that that I've used on my second monitor. Yeah, if I was to get a fourth monitor, I'd have to question whether maybe my video card couldn't really handle it. Here we have a game on Steam called Aeon Drive Tournament, which is free, single player, seems to be mostly a demo for Aeon Drive, which is, yeah, looks like it's a precision platformer, which, yeah, I'm gonna have to really start calling them just precision platformers instead of making up my own phrase of frustration platformers, even though I think frustration platformers are probably a better descriptor for me. Let's see, Video Games Chronicles says Platinum Games' Soul Cresta is out this year with the story mode DLC on its way. It's a retro-inspired shooter. Do we have a video? Interesting. This isn't a YouTube video that Video Games Chronicle is using. Yeah, this was the shoot 'em up game with like different configurations of 3 different ships that you can rearrange, which honestly I just think overly complicates something that is already fairly complicated. So yeah, I'm not particularly excited about that. The Game Master TV reboot has started looking for contestants, according to Video Games Chronicles. I don't know what Game Master is. Like, I've never seen this image before. This says Channel 4, so I'm kind of wondering if this is BBC Channel 4. Yeah, UK. So Game Master must have been a thing here. I don't want to watch too much of this and get content ID'd. Yeah, it looks very rough, like most British TV shows do or did for most of their history. There were some Nickelodeon shows certainly like this, and if anything, I would say Game Master probably has you playing more legitimate games instead of ridiculous non-licensed games or ridiculous made-up games for the TV show. Yeah. When G4 TV was originally G4 TV, there was a show like this where you would actually have people playing arcade machines or playing games. Playing other kinds of games on TV. There's a real question as far as, does a TV channel need to run the show in any way like that, or can you just be a streamer and stream yourself? Like, there is a real question, I suppose, there as far as just whether anybody should or would want to be limited in the restriction of playing on TV by TV's rules to play video games when you could just be a streamer. And sure, I guess if you got major streamers like Dr. Disrespect or something on your TV shows and had them all play each other, that might be interesting. I don't know if it's particularly interesting if you got celebrities who are mediocre at best at video games, playing video games. You're at this point marketing to the completely wrong audience if you're making a TV show for gamers, because the new generation of people that are not watching TV. TV has become solely the venue for old people that frankly just cannot learn or bother to learn how to use Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or Amazon Prime even. Yeah. All of those offer way better offerings as far as content and ways to watch content. A great example of that certainly is that Netflix in the United States is getting Seinfeld, and I might actually bother to watch all of Seinfeld again just because it's convenient on Netflix, whereas I have the DVDs of Seinfeld. It'll be interesting to see if the episode that never gets re-aired in syndication, the Puerto Rican Day Parade that caused the controversy, it'll be interesting to see if that is in the collection or not. But yeah, I suppose that's sort of video game news. If anything, it's just a reminder that video games are replacing TV and movies. And yeah, I think music in itself has probably just died by its own sword. People still listen to radio if they're in a car or have nothing better to do, but most of the time I think the more with it people are listening to Spotify playlists and Spotify. Moving on, Video Game Chronicle says Animal Crossing amiibo cards are being restocked at Target, which, yeah. Amiibo cards seem weird. So do they have NFC chips in it? I would assume they do. The amiibo cards can be used to invite residents to other players. So apparently they've shifted from the idea, at least for Animal Crossing, from the idea of having amiibo toys and a toys to life concept to just having cards that have NFC chips in it. There was a post on Reddit where a wallet had an NFC chip in it, and it went to their website whenever you put a phone or anything on top of it. Which, yeah, that's not nice, to say the least, that you can't. And they tried to reprogram it, but apparently there was a password on it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was not reprogrammable. Yeah, I don't see a scenario where you would want an NFC thing in your wallet in general. Even if you could reprogram it for your daily driver credit card or debit card, that seems really risky, and you would get questioned certainly if you just pulled out your wallet and tapped it to a screen. And that has been the consistent problem with any new technology as far as paying with NFC or anything like that, is that either the cashier checkout person is confused by something looking weird, to the point where you can't even get like custom art on credit cards from most companies these days, because if you have a custom picture on your credit card, people think it's fake, and they're so paranoid about it. And frankly, the cashiers are underpaid and undertrained. So
Activate. Enhance. Fire.
that it is smarter to have a piece of paper in your wallet saying this wallet belongs to this person, please return it, maybe offer a reward even. But yeah, it's way smarter to have something like that inside your card than it is to have an NFC chip that probably wouldn't even be scanned. And even if you just had like business card info on your wallet, tapping your wallet to somebody's phone is not as good as having a business card with an NFC chip in it, or QR code on it, which also, even now, the idea of having QR codes on a business card is not really necessary. Like, they used to cost quite a bit to buy a document scanner that would just automatically scan text and put it into a kind of copy-pastable format, or put it into its own proprietary software. But Google Lens will do that now. You can just straight up take a picture with Google Lens to scan a regular business card and read the... Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back again to another stream of Shadowverse. So today is still Friday, September 3rd. The power went out, and thus the internet went out at my house for a couple hours. So yeah, let's hop back into what we were doing. We don't need to do an accountability section and a setup again. Let's try to get through the video game news and just continue as we were. When the power goes out, particularly when you're more of a technologically minded person like me, it's not fun, to say the least. There's nothing to do really. Pretty much everything I do revolves around using some form of electricity. My battery backup just shut the computer off completely immediately, without, I think, even trying to properly shut down at all. And it definitely didn't put it in hibernation mode, which it's supposed to. There's a problem with the cyber power battery backup software, that it just doesn't seem to run or launch on startup. I don't know why. I'm going to try and reinstall the software and make sure it works and actually does what it's supposed to do.
Dark Dragoon, ruler of
It
the
could just be a
sky.
case that I accidentally close it a lot.
I'm gonna murder your world.
Yeah. So since it's a Friday, we probably aren't gonna. We just need to kind of rush through the video game news, and we'll leave it at that. So there's a Bloomberg article here, which is probably from Jason Schreier. Let's see. Yeah. Who seems to continuously have made a name for himself as being a almost real journalist about video games. Former PlayStation chief muses on the future of gaming. We could read this whole article, or I could just wait for GameDeveloper.com in particular to rewrite the article, if anything of interest. If there is anything of interest to say, there is definitely a case to be made that whatever the old Sony CEO has to say is not going to be particularly impactful. Maybe his words carry some weight, but he's obviously not the person in charge of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now, the old Sony, or Western Sony people were probably a little bit better, but not really great either. If you really get past Sony fanboyism and just look at the lineup and the exclusives that the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 up until this point have had, they really haven't been great. That there hasn't been a good online service to supplement the PlayStation lineup. PlayStation 2 was, in my opinion, the heyday of PlayStation and PlayStation 1. And if, frankly, it wasn't for the fact that Sony was behind the PlayStation, it would have definitely failed completely. But I guess in fairness, so would the Xbox if Microsoft wasn't behind that. But yeah, Sony and having Japan being very loyal to you can really only get you so far. And now that Japan doesn't seem to be particularly loyal to the PlayStation and seems to be moving the PC and the Switch much more, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, probably as PlayStation 6 comes out, probably maybe even a 7, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's just these smaller and smaller amounts of games around that. And in all fairness, I think even if you looked at just exclusives, true exclusives to the Xbox One versus Xbox 360 re-releases, the Xbox One may not really have that much of a lineup, and the Xbox Series S and X are now quickly, I think, eating any memory that once existed as far as what the Xbox One exclusive lineups would have been. But yeah, mostly I'm gonna speculate that I do need to run my ad blocker on, obviously, Bloomberg, because we will occasionally see a Jason Schreier article. It still is, generally speaking, as far as mainstream video game news media, it's kind of ridiculous that there is Jason Schreier, and that's pretty much it as far as a trusted source, or even a decent source of actual breaking news reporting, whereas everybody else is not even really worth mentioning. And
I am the guardian of the sky.
like, if you were to compare that to mainstream news in general, there is probably, even not really knowing mainstream news, you could probably name people like Anderson Cooper, whatever you think about their news reporting. There's there's I believe a guy named Dan. Actually, I can't name him. Come to think of it, I'm kind of glad I can't name him. Dan rather. Still, I think a decent on-air personality, as far as name recognition goes. Not really quality. Let's see. There are definitely prominent names on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Newsmax. Real names that could put out real articles, and their name would hold some weight to at least their own personal audiences. Whereas if I saw an article and it said Jeff Gersman, I would know who that is, but I don't know if most people would know who that is. And if you named basically anybody from Kotaku to me, I wouldn't recognize who they are. And then, in all honesty, familiarity has bred contempt as far as video game journalists. The more I got to know the mainstream video game journalists, the more I realized how bad they are, and I think people like Anderson Cooper are just better at probably hiding their flaws and not allowing that much contempt to be bred around them, although there still is plenty of that. But yeah, Jason Schreier really is establishing his own tier of name recognition as far as possibly being a decent news reporter. And a lot of that definitely comes down to the fact that there's just zero budget for investigative journalism. And while I'm almost certainly not the person to do it, if I was running my own channel and actually did have a budget of any income at all, I too would probably not be able to make as extra budget to make investigative journalism a priority. Moving on with regular video game news, though, a retailer glitch allowed customers to buy Switch Lite consoles for free. Some users managed to get multiple consoles, while others claiming they'll resell them. This is a UK retailer, Argus, and they pulled it from their website. Now, in the UK, maybe they have to actually honor those sales. In the United States, pricing errors don't usually have to be honored. Let's see. It involved adding a particular carrying case to the website basket in addition to the Switch Lite to apply an erroneous discount covering the entire cost of the order, £206. So I paid a delivery charge of $3.95. Yeah. I wonder a lot of times when I see these pricing errors if these aren't intentional errors. Sometimes. More often than anything else, I'd imagine they are just accidental mistyping of things or miscombinations of effects, but yeah, I also wouldn't be surprised if some IT guy has specifically put in a cheat code so that they can get themselves a free Switch, and then leaking that information to a slickdeals.net style website that's all about getting the best deals possible would allow you to get some cover potentially, but probably not a lot. I imagine you'd still get caught if you're an IT guy and you're taking advantage of bug. Let's see.
A spin and a twirl and out. There's our puppy to grip.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more to this article from Video Games Chronicle to have to talk about. Video Games Chronicle also has an article here that the artist behind Jet Set Radio has returned to Sega. He was also the director of the first 2 Yakuza games. Now, generally, an artist might be... I don't know how it's done in Japan. I imagine you probably would be a full-time employee in Japan. But in the West, you would be a... What's that word when they don't really want to make you an employee, but still treat you like an employee?
The uncharted desert awaits. My raging flames have got you
Yeah.
back.
I can't think of the word.
That twig won't do a thing.
Contractor.
There's a lot more
Yeah,
where that
that's the
comes
word.
from.
I'm ready for more.
So yeah, usually in the West, a artist would be a contractor, and same is true for writers in games. So I could see them contracting with the guy and then bringing him back. Since this guy was also a director, he's probably high enough level that him working for Sega again is a bigger deal. His artwork is fairly unique, so it would be very hard to potentially try and think about making any more Jet Set Radio games without Ryuta Ueda. But yeah. On the other hand, I could totally see having a new artist just clone and copy Jet Set Radio's art style, since you're going to have to change it and modernize it anyways. Even here you have like 3D modeling and stuff that very possibly has jumped a generation or 2 since the last time a Jet Set Radio game has been made, so yeah. It always still shocks me that there aren't more Jet Set Radio style clones out there. But it kind of makes sense too, because there is a level of like lack of support for what am I trying to say? There's a lack of support for skating, grinding games in general, so that has to either be completely eliminated as a gameplay mechanic, or you have to work really well. Yeah. I suppose it is worth mentioning here that an indie developer, Team Reptile, has been promoting a game called Bomb Rush Cyberpunk and as a spiritual successor. And yeah, that's what we've been looking at on the video. I literally thought that was Cyberpunk. No, Jet Set Radio we were watching. Maybe it was. But yeah. So this again might be a case of Sega either hiring out competition or specifically trying to
Uncharted desert awaits.
Trying to make something that is Jet Set Radio like, as a way of avoiding somebody stealing the title. I could see potentially making a game better than Jet Set Radio, inspired by Jet Set Radio, and then the next generation of players, instead of ever referencing Jet Set Radio, which was a niche game, referencing something completely different. And yeah, I guess you don't want to lose that ground once you've won it. Moving on, Melty Blood Type Lumnia has a trailer for Noelle, which is another fighting character in the Melty Blood series, which seems to be mostly Skullgirls, anime Skullgirls for lack of a better term. Although this one looks like a nun, and I'm not sure if most of them aren't actually nuns. Or, well, the ones before were maids, so they seem to be going through a collection of fetishes, for lack of a better term. Let's see.
Ready to witness my true strength?
Oh, this thing's more vicious than a nine-headed dragon. This is pure craftsmanship.
Let's see. Gametsu says Varian, the Bit Summit, the 8-bit demo highlight trailer. So the Japanese indie event Bit Summit happened, and here we have a game which looks like an arena fighter. Doesn't look terrible, but I would have to question how much gameplay is really worth here. At a certain point, I guess this is slightly better than a dungeon crawler, in that at least you have 3D action, hack and slash experience, but it does kind of feel like you are basically just still dungeon crawling, just in an arena instead of your standard. Let's see.
Magic is a salve and a scourge. This idiocy is exhausting.
Okay, guess you evolve here.
You have
I've lost, obviously.
There's more than one way. Think before you act.
Let's see, Gunvolt Chronicles Avenger IX2 has been announced for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, the Switch, and PC. This is a direct sequel to the 2019 released title. If I recall correctly, the Gunvolt series is kind of an action beat-em-up platforming series that probably has enough polish to it to give it some consideration. Let's see if the trailer shows us anything else of interesting. Yeah. I kind of want to compare this to Mega Man, but I don't know if you get the abilities like Mega Man, and that seems to be so specifically connected to the idea of a Mega Man game that then you just really would call it a beat 'em up platformer, which I don't know if there is a good game to compare that to. Let's see. Gametsu has the King of Fighters 15 Ash Crimson trailer screenshots, which, yeah, King of Fighters, another character. I guess there was a focus on fighting games at the 8-bit Summit event, or just coincidentally several announcements around fighting games. I guess fighting games probably are still fairly popular in Japan. That they are kind of their own niche sub-audience, and that has always created a barrier to entry as far as me getting around to thinking about actually playing a fighting game, a proper fighting game with strategy instead of just a generic beat 'em up game where I can mash buttons, which in all fairness I probably would enjoy the beat 'em up game more. Let's see. The romance visual novel Fragment's Note is coming to Switch, according to Gametsu. Is it the entire series? Yes, it's the entire series. So, Fragment's Note 2, with side stories Shizuku and side story Yuki Shiki Suki, and then fragments note after stories, and then fragments note memories exclusive mini scenario, which kind of implies either there are 2 sequels to the game proper, or there are no sequels to the series. Yeah, which visual novels sometimes do go in that crazy direction. Let's see. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 launches in the summer of 2022. There's a development report video on the Gamatsu listing here, which, yeah, they're showing off gameplay on a TV in an office. This is a pretty low effort presentation for a Japanese presentation. And at a certain point, I don't know why you would show something like this from this camera angle. It seems like what you're really doing here is you're hiding the fact that the graphics look bad or that they're not really playing. I will applaud them all wearing masks, but they're still probably sitting a little too close to each other for safety's sake, particularly when you consider Japan's vaccination rate is not as high as it should be. They just haven't been given the offer. Most countries outside of the United States have not been given the opportunity to get vaccinated, even if they wanted to. But yeah, it definitely feels like you could have done a presentation like that where you were just showing the video on OBS, using OBS, and just capturing the video of the game. And you could very possibly just have everybody else Skype in and have one person connect via something like Parsec so they can actually control the game and play it. Or have one person in the room playing the game and the other 2 people Skyping in. What that video really shows is how it is still very much the case that Japanese employees are being expected to come into an office to work, and that they cannot break themselves of the old ways of doing things. Game development really should be fairly easy to convert over to near 100% remote work. Moving on, Gamatsu says Marvel's Midnight Suns gameplay reveal trailer and screenshots. I think we had already kind of seen a teaser trailer, so now we're at a gameplay reveal trailer. You see a bunch of characters, and I'm wondering if this is kind of a Telltale style game, or if it's what, like Marvel's Midnight Suns. Yeah, why would cards all of a sudden show up? It seems crazy. It seems like you talk to people and do a kind of Telltale game, and then your actual gameplay mechanic is more of a turn-based tactical puzzle experience. Which you play with cards. Wasn't this the game that Second Dinner was supposed to be making, though? Was a Marvel collectible card game? Like, how can there possibly be 2? Did Second Dinner, Ben Brode's company, just lose the contract? I mean, they might be better off not being ham-fisted and tied down to the Marvel universe, but it seems really crazy that Fire Access Games would be making a Marvel card game, and then Second Dinner theoretically was making one.
Magic is a sound.
Yeah, in all fairness, if Benbro did come out and say, hey, instead of making a Marvel card game, we're just making our own Hearthstone style game, since I was the person that worked on Hearthstone, and it's just going to be under its own title and not have licensed content, that's probably better anyways. One thing about my favorite cell phone game that I play, Destiny Child, that they really messed up on and can never really fix is the fact that early on in their experience they did 3 crossover events where these collab characters were never available for purchase ever again, and never are unlikely to ever be available for purchase, to the point where you might as well just remove them from the game completely, because they're kind of pointless to still exist in the series. So the idea of collabs and licensing in a Marvel card game, if Second Dinner ever lost the license their entire card game would have to be reskinned, or just abandoned for a new card game. Now that would really suck to potentially say, hey, you've spent 4 or 5 years playing this Marvel card game, we've lost the license, now come play our new game, which is just the same thing all over again. It'd be the equivalent of saying all the cards in Magic the Gathering are banned and you have to play Magic the Gathering 2 instead.
You'll make a good test subject.
Moving on, Gametsu has an article here. Clouded Leopard Entertainment and Kanai Design have announced a 3D action game called Oni. Oni being the Japanese word for devil. We have a teaser video. I guess we do. I think the scroll bar app I installed is getting rid of the idea of scroll bars on the bottom of the screen. I've yet to see one, but it is putting up a red line at the top of my screen. But that might work fine. I can see if I can turn that off, or I could clip it. We already talked about Soul Cresta launching December 9th, I believe. But Gametsu has that article also. Rise of the Third Power announced for PC. It's a love letter to the glory days of console-style RPGs. This feels very soft in its animation style. I'm not sure I could enjoy that art style. It looks a little bit better on this trailer, so that may just have been a case of that image being blurred. And the actual game just looks like a pixely, like, RPG Maker experience. Yeah. Immediately looking at this, I have to reject it. The problem here is it's a love letter to old school NES era, Famicom era RPG games, but there is no love in my heart at all for those types of games. So, yeah. That creates a weird situation. Let's see, next Gametsu has a Shueisha and Tosto? That's a weird word. I've never seen that before. Anyways, the alpha, or maybe the game is Tosto Alpha. Or maybe these are 2 businesses. I guess these are 2 businesses. They announced a survival roguelike adventure game called Atina no Tou, The Tower of Children, due out in 2022. Tasto Alpha. Oh, I guess that's probably how you pronounce it. Tasto. And it seems like you're gonna have flying whales and kids sitting on the edge of a tower. Yeah, and that seems to be about all they're really teasing. I would be terrified if a kid was on the edge of something where they could fall over and die or just disappear into the void. Let's see. Next we have a game called Hunt a Night, having a limited time demo now available for PC. It's a retro style action adventure game coming to consoles and PC. It was, I guess, first announced in June for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, although a release date has not been mentioned. Here we have a game called Smelter, now available for the PS5. It's a free upgrade for owners of the PS4 version. I'm not sure what Smelter is, though. Kind of has a sharp art style, but then the actual game makes it look like it is another action platforming game with the flying around to maps and kind of doing a tower defense experience. I do remember seeing this when it first came out, and that is frankly a little shocking in itself because there's just been so much announcements. Yeah, this was the one where, for kind of no explained reason, you have the large amount of shoulder armor on the anime character, and then the bikini in the middle, which seems a little exploitative. But yeah, I guess we are just mostly gonna have to wait until an actual release date comes up for that game and see if there's any reviews that like it or not. It may be a good game and have nothing to do with the bikini armor at all, and the bikini armor may just be a little excessive. You see a lot of games tend to lean towards being a little bit more conservative than they need to. Very rarely do you see them going slightly more liberal in the way they depict skin. In particular, usually if they are going to go lewd or just full-on nudity, they go the full Monty and try to show as much as they can get away with. It'd be really weird if a Senran Kagura game came out and it just had one character in a slightly scantily clad outfit. But that is kind of the direction that some of the Senran Kagura games seem to be going. See, Gametsu says Kunio Kun 35th anniversary plan countdown website has been launched. Kunio Kun. I don't know who Kunio is, though. This logo is not making it recognizable. It may very well be a game series that is known in Japan, but not known in the West.
I'll open the way. Follow behind.
Alright.
Perish before true magic. This victory is a testament to your strength.
We're not winning today, but honestly, because of the power outage and all, the goal is just going to be to get everything done as quickly as possible and call it a day. So I'm not really going to spend any extra effort trying to get victories today. Not that I usually spend any effort really to do it anyways. Gamatsu has an article. The smartphone game Rakugaki Kingdom is going to end service on November 2nd. It launched in January of 2021, so it's already failed. Which is a shame because it kind of looks like it's trying to be a Pokemon style game, but Yeah, the visual polish on that's a little low. eFootball 2022 launches September 3rd, according to Gamatsu. Read that article if you're interested. Nintendo has announced Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain for the Switch, which I guess they needed a new Big Brain Academy game because, yeah, it's been a while since the last one they made. You want to be careful, I would say, as someone who has a lifetime experience of seeing video games and the quality of video games. You want to be careful to not, as a parent or as a purchaser of games for kids, fall into the trap of educational software or things sold as educational software, even if it's from Nintendo themselves, who have a decent track record of good games. I would say be very, very careful to not waste your money on something kids have no interest in playing. It, of course, depends on the age and the predisposition of specific kids, because maybe you could give it to a 4 or 5-year-old, something like Big Brain Academy, and they'd actually appreciate it and want to play it for a while. But most kids would just roll their eyes at a game like that. And then adults are unlikely to play Big Brain Academy. Also, since it's a brain versus brain game, you basically need 2 kids willing to cooperate at the same time to play a game like that, and that makes it even more difficult and unlikely to happen.
I'll hit the vanguard.
Twig won't do a thing.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. The horror adventure game Shadow Corridor for Switch is coming to the West on October 26th. I think we've probably already seen this one. That being said, they all kind of look the same as far as horror games. Definitely feels like the fact that you have a map might change things a little bit, but this also feels like this is a pretty low quality horror game, which I am definitely in a catch-22 with low quality, specifically Asian horror games, in that we would like more Asian games and less zombie games and Western style games that have horror elements but aren't really horrific in any ways. But the vast majority of Asian horror games are, knowing that they are a niche, not putting in the budget and the polish needed to make a game look good. That's why things like Fatal Frame are so important to at least consider playing, because there really isn't that many options. Like, I don't even know what else I would compare to something like Fatal Frame.
That was a fine bout.
Let's see. THQ Nordic has a 10th anniversary showcase for September 7th, featuring 6 new game announcements. It seems unbelievable that THQ Nordic is really 10 years old, but the old THQ would have been over 10 years, so I guess I have to kind of believe that is the case. Here we are seeing several teasers of games, but I don't think these are games that haven't been announced yet. Yeah, these seem to all be those seem to be all announcements that have already happened. One of the 6 new game announcements will include the return of legendary franchises, or the announcements will be including the return of legendary franchises.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Let's see. guess you evolve this in a turn.
There's a lot more where that came from.
The thing, certainly now that THQ Nordic or its parent company Embracer Group owns so many companies, it could be just anything really. Almost any game is up for grabs as far as it being a legendary franchise, and there's no hard definition that they're held to as far as legendary franchises. So yeah, it's easier and smarter to just not even think about these teases for announcements that have yet to happen, and just wait until the actual announcement happens. Then we can start to go down the process of being hyped for some new game. Gamatsu says there's a PlayStation Showcase 2021 set for September 9th. Which, okay. It probably would be good for PlayStation to announce a few more games and try and build up some hype for Black Friday and Christmas. I have no idea what Black Friday and Christmas is going to look like in 2021 though. It may be very few video games actually available for purchase and consoles available for purchase, just because of the chip shortage and because of people not having money and because of people not willing to go out and shop during the pandemic. So I have said before, I think publicly, and I'll say it again now, it would be kind of nice if 2020 and 2021 and the COVID-19 pandemic in particular just broke people of their consumeristic habits quite a bit, particularly in the United States and rich countries, to the point where people are not wasting a bunch of money on stupid fad things and gadgets and gizmos, and people are really giving consideration to what they actually need and want in their life, and being able to find better satisfaction with what the few things they do get or the few things they already have, instead of constantly chasing a desire to own more and more.
You don't know when to quit.
Moving on, Horizon Forbidden West limited editions have been announced, and there's a pre-order trailer. There's also news that apparently somebody at Sony said that the upgrade from the PlayStation 4 version of Horizon Forbidden West would be a free upgrade for the PlayStation 5 version. Now they've backed away from that statement, so it definitely seems like Sony lied. At least that is how people are taking it, and that's all that it really matters. Like, if somebody feels you lied, you lied. As far as people care. That is why it's very important to always speak the truth or say nothing, particularly when advertising a product. Moving on, Gamatsu says the Thunderful Group has acquired Stage Clear Studios, an acquisition worth up to £2.5 million. Close that. Gamatsu says Crisis Remastered Trilogy launches October 15th for PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. Yep. Crisis is really an example of one of those games where, since I've just not gotten around to playing it, I now have no reason to really play the original Crisis other than to just spotlight and see how it looks graphically and how it feels with controller, and then immediately I would just jump over to the newer version. Guess you do this.
Freshness guaranteed.
Let's see. Gamatsu has the Famitsu sales updated. So Tsukihime, A Piece of Blue Glass Moon for the Switch, sold 72,000 units, whereas for the PS4 it sold 66,000 units, showing that people, even in Japan on the launch week, are more likely, ever so slightly, to buy it on the Nintendo Switch. Then by the time you get to the third game, Ring Fit Adventure, you are at 15,000 units. So sales are, I think, in general fairly low. No More Heroes for the Switch is also fairly low. You're talking a tenth of the Tsukihime, which I believe Tsukihime is a fighting game, and not a visual novel game. And I guess that might also point that Marvelous has way less advertising budget than Aniplex does. And then Legend of Heroes from Cloud Leopard Entertainment is in 12th spot, and Hitman 3 is new for the PS4, I guess, in Japan with 5,000 units. But yeah, you're getting very, very low numbers. Very, very low numbers. It's like basically everybody who bought a Switch this week bought Tsukihime, which probably goes to point out that while it is practically unrecognizable to a Western eye like mine, it is clearly an important game to consider. Because it definitely has relevance, at least in Japan. Let's see. Babylon's Fall closed beta test, Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been reported, according to Komatsu. I think we would like to know a little bit more about Babylon's Fall, but a closed beta probably isn't going to alleviate the concerns of the trailer that came out announcing it, because that was a real awkward trailer that did not hype people at all. See, the Megaton Musashi anime debut trailer is out now, which I believe Megaton Musashi is a game, an action RPG, and the anime trailer is obviously some cross promotion.
Nothing personal. It's justice.
Okay.
I'll scorch you as black as these skies. Well, that's too bad.
The Amazon.co.uk, usually we don't show Amazon links here, is showing this listing for a PS4 version of Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy and Star Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. There's another combo game that was also listed. But it does seem fairly obvious that they will be putting out some of the THQ Nordic Aspire Media is putting out some of the old Star Wars Lucasfilm Games things, which, if those are legendary series, which Star Wars definitely I think would fall under the category of legendary series, then yeah, it seems like THQ Nordic has gotten the publishing rights to some of the old Star Wars games. see. Do we have another match to do? Yes, we do. We can see here at the one of the rating sites. It is Star Wars Jedi Knight Collection for PlayStation 4 for Switch, and then Star Wars Racer and Commando combo for PS4 and Switch. Also, I guess maybe Vader Immortal and Fallen Order. I think these are older games, and this is just a long list of things with Star Wars in the name. Yeah, it is. So, yeah. Seems like 2 combo games are going to be released by THQ Nordic. Moving on, Gamatsu says Kojin Sword of Rewind has been delayed to January 27th of 2022, and they've added an Xbox Series and Xbox One versions. And Kopin from Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger 9-2 joins the fray. Is there a trailer for this game? Because Kojin Sword of Rewind is a weird name. Yep, so a time manipulation, platforming, hack and slash game. Well, the Sands of Time series introduced the idea of time manipulation as a way of making a very difficult style game way easier. I could imagine you might have the same effect in a game like this, where it's a somewhat difficult platformer, but then you can rewind time and undo your mistakes, and that makes it easier. Laid Back Camp, Have a Nice Day has an opening movie if you want to check that out. I think I'll go ahead and skip that. That's on Gamatsu also. Melty Blood Type Lumnia has Seal versus Shiki Tono gameplay. So, Melty Blood is still showing off a lot of fighting elements. It probably feels slightly weird, although I doubt school's age kids would care. But it probably feels a little weird to play a fighting game as a Japanese school youth and then have all the characters look like Japanese school youth. But you know, on the other hand, these are anime characters that they don't look anything like real humans. They're totally off. So I bet there's still a fairly high level of disassociation, as high as I imagine the average Westerner feels like they could relate to a Mortal Kombat character. Even like Johnny Cage is ridiculously over the top and not relatable as far as their appearance and your average Mortal Kombat player would look. Let's see. Moving on, Lost Judgment DLC schedule has been announced, so you can check that out if you're interested. Gotham Knights key artwork and new content to debut at the DC Fandom on October 16th, which we already had talked about that, but there is a new picture here, which I guess that's something. Let's see. A Savage first-person shooter called Turbo Overkill has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Which, let's see if we can see a trailer on that. Turbo Overkill is certainly promising a lot. This guy has a jigsaw, like a chainsaw in his leg and a robotic hand. And then we're finding guys that look a little rough in their animation. Yeah. There might be something to this, but in a lot of ways this might just be a Overwatch type clone with a different art style and feeling to it, or this might just be a little too rough. Like, it feels a lot like a Serious Sam game without Serious Sam would be what I would compare it to. And I don't know if a Serious Sam game these days would actually succeed, or if there needs to be just more of a gameplay concept. Yep, I saw some more articles covering this idea that gambling in your game automatically lands a PEGI 18 rating. It seems like it's slightly lenient, where it's not going to go back and re-rate anything that it's already rated one way. So the original, like, Pokemon games having slot machines in them wouldn't all of a sudden get a PEGI 18 rating. B, it seems like you could probably be in a casino or near a casino, or even through the actions of a game, like activate a gambling machine and it still wouldn't count. And it really is, regardless of how you feel, silliness, because all they really are doing is saying that they're putting in a rule that addresses
There's a lot more where that came from.
that addresses an issue that's not the best focus, because people are not concerned about buying a poker game and then playing poker on it. Me playing Telltale Poker, Night at the Roxbury. No, it's not Night at the Roxbury. Me playing one of the Telltale Poker games is not a problem. It would be perfectly fine by me if that was rated PEGI 18. The problem is games closer to Pokemon Go, where there's microtransactions and gambling mechanics without it looking like a real gambling experience. And so any hopes of the UK potentially putting in real limitations or rules to curb the amount of microtransactions and gambling loot box mechanics seem to be slightly dashed at this new rule. Perhaps the government will actually step in instead of I assume PEGI is a private ratings board that's only optional.
On to the next project.
In the same way that the ESA is not really anything but a lobby group, and they're only trying to protect the game companies and let them continue to have gambling mechanics. They're not trying to actually curb it.
Victory is exhilarating.
On the other hand, it's probably not the best time to be talking about gambling mechanics in games when we don't really have a good example of a game full of gambling mechanics that recently came out. You could maybe talk about FIFA or something, one of the EA games, but most other games of any major press coverage lately have not had that. And if anything, there is a legitimate argument to make that that game developers are kind of going in the right direction and just naturally, because of backlash, avoiding gambling mechanics or reducing gambling mechanics. GameDeveloper.com has composer Guy Jones talks adaptive music for games. This might be interesting if you want to be a composer is just hearing somebody's thoughts. It's, I guess, kind of an opinion interview more than anything. GDC talks now apparently are in the GDC vault. Or more to say, they are in GDC 2021 talks are now in the vault. So they're doing a Disney vault type idea and making people pay to see a lot of those talks. Which, in all fairness, the people that would really need or want to listen to those kinds of talks probably are professionals themselves, and they could just write off a license or a subscription to the GDC vault as a business expense for educational material. Let's see. GameDeveloper.com says CD Projekt revenues rise, profits slide in rough first half of 2021. This is funny that this character is being shown on Cyberpunk 2077 because I have never seen this character before. I don't know if it's just a custom creation version of who the main character is supposed to be, but yeah, that seems weird. GameDeveloper.com says the Paradox CEO Ebba Ljungerud, Ljungerud is probably how that's really pronounced, has resigned due to deferring views on company strategy. That's a funny way of saying she was politely asked to leave. Particularly as the chief executive officer, because, and this might be a blow to women in power in general, because if she was the true CEO in power, she would have probably fired anybody that failed to bend to her views. But maybe she also saw that Paradox Interactive, which has been in a lot of controversy in the past couple years. So yeah, maybe she's jumping ship when the jumping is good.
Ooh-wee, this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
The newly appointed chairman of the board, Hakan Sejongson, has thanked her for her contribution. I guess they'll name a new CEO at some point in the future. GameDeveloper.com also says Apple has tweaked the App Store rules for reader apps to allow external links and payments, specifically reader apps, though not video game apps.
Well, on to the next project.
And they've also made special deals for like Amazon Video, Netflix, and Kindle. But then, see, MyGrames has grabbed a minority stake of the Spanish developer The Breach Studios for $4.1 million. If that interests you. See. Thunderful has purchased the Spanish developer Stage Clear Studios for $2.9 million. Seems like maybe the Spanish government just approved a couple of sales at the same time. Let's see. GameDeveloper.com has game engines on Steam, the definitive breakdown, which this might be interesting. According to this, as it jumps here, unknown is the vast majority until Unity takes over, which almost feels like there would be a reclassification at some point to just assume things are Unity. Unreal is actually making a far lower amount. Now, this is a bad graph. First of all, if you're going to make a color graph, all the colors have to be distinctively different. And ideally, you would use one of the suggested colorblind palettes. And the problem here is you throw out the blue one because other doesn't mean anything. You throw out the unknown, which is the vast majority of it. And then you really are just left with Unity, Unreal, Game Maker. XNA, I believe, is the Xbox game. And by 2010, they're saying only one game is there. RPG Maker apparently has fallen completely off the map in favor of Game Maker, which also has fallen off the map. Yeah. It's hard to really believe these informations. RinPy, Tom, PyTom, let's see, this is some kind of Python-based game engine, which apparently Lady Ian the Killer in the Bind and Long Live the Queen was made with that.
My raging flames have got your back. That twig won't do a thing.
See, RPG Game Maker, Adobe Air. It's crazy that people would be
This victory is a testament to your strength.
It'd be ridiculous to make something with Adobe Air. XNA is a Microsoft thing that I wouldn't really recommend people using. Ogre as an open source thing. I guess Roblox was based on that. And then I've never even heard of I've heard of Adventure Game Studio because I play point and click adventure games. Source Engine not being used by anybody. So as far as having a Metacritic rating, I can't trust any of this stuff. Like, oddly, the average Metacritic rating for Unreal, why is this ordered this way? These charts are terrible. Just absolutely terrible. See. They're making a point to say a lot of things are labeled as RPG Maker, which, frankly, at this point, calling something RPG Maker as a tag is not saying that it actually is made with RPG Maker. It's saying that it looks like it was made with RPG Maker. In the same way that if I make a hamburger that looks like a McRib, then people are going to call it a McRib. Even if it's made by a different company.
Dark Dragoon, ruler of the sky.
I don't know why I specifically picked McRib. Unfortunately, after looking at these terrible charts and trying to make some sense out of this, I can't trust any of this information. I would suspect that there is a considerably higher amount of Unreal games on Steam than what's being mentioned. I would say that there is a large chance that a lot of unknown games are made in Unreal or Unity, which would totally change it. And it's not even really worth talking about any of the other any of the other engines. They are so far ahead. Other than to say, yes, there are other engines, but a insignificant amount of people are using those engines. GameDeveloper.com has an article here. China's second largest e-commerce platform has banned unlicensed games after the playtime crackdown. which they were supposed to have banned unlicensed games anyways. This is JD.com. And they probably just came out and said that they banned them. They pledged to remove up to 86 titles, including popular releases like The Last of Us Part 2, Super Mario Maker 2, Call of Duty, and FIFA 21 from its platform. Yeah, all Western games, not Chinese games at all. But then this is also a Western news reporter, so of the remaining 70 plus games on that list, they may all be Chinese games. Yeah, it's crazy. Certainly. But yeah. Undoubtedly, the Chinese government is putting as much pressure on Chinese companies as possible to help propagate their push in their basically war against video games in general, whether they are Western and Eastern games. Moving on, GameDeveloper.com has this article. We talked about this before, but Horizon Forbidden West will not have a free PS4 to PS5 upgrade. Which, yeah, that's crappy. What can you say other than that? And then a Swedish studio, Gigantic Duck, has netted 1.2 million to support its debut title, Bomber Grounds. And with that I think covers all of our news. So now what we're going to do is go through a few games on Steam that came out on Steam, and we are going to stop as soon as I have a decent amount of yeah. As soon as I've closed enough tabs to think that there's only a few more tabs left. So, ideally, 1 or 2 games at most.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Of course, I also need to go to the bathroom, and might just be easier just to end it now. Here we have a game called Coin Pusher World, which looks like a coin pusher. Doesn't look particularly visually polished enough. See, this is one of those examples where, does this count as gambling and get you a PEGI 18 in the UK? Because it is gambling, definitely, but somebody somewhere is going to try and make a claim that coin pushers are actually games of skill. That's what they always try to do. This is 319, and obviously we can skip it and say no to that. El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron is already on my follow list, and it is rated 84% positive with 45 reviews, so there's no reason not to just put that on the wish list now. I am very interested in playing this at some point, but there is also not really any rush, so getting it on sale away from the main $25 price would probably be useful. And you may very well want the art book in this case. Normally I wouldn't buy an art book for any games, but yeah, this might be an exception. Here we have a game called SpaceX Collector, which looks like garbage, for 59 cents. We haven't seen a lot of 59 cents games lately either in the past month or two. Here we have a game called Katari Fables. Kit Area Fables, I guess maybe is how you pronounce that. I'm gonna leave this on the follow list to think about it some more because it looks like it's a farming sim. It is mostly positive. Let me just put this on the wish list, I guess. Let's see. Someone has posted in the chat in Spanish. Can I translate? No.
I shall take the front.
So he says, Hola, yo te sigo por el juego de Indiana Jones. Tú soy de Mexico y mi cantante favoritas, Paulina Rubio. Saludos. Which then I think in Spanish he's translated to, Hi, I'm from Mexico. My favorite singer is Paulina Rubio. And I think there probably was a part there where he said he's seen my Indiana Jones, Lego Indiana Jones. Is that how you pronounce Lego in Spanish? Is it Juego? Is it Yego? Interesting. I would have thought Lego would have been Lego everywhere. I know in Mexico, I thought all the Lego boxes were being sold just labeled as Lego in Mexico because all the Legos I get in the United States have Spanish in them. But maybe not. Maybe when you get deeper into Mexico City, they translate it. Hi, that is R Lop. I'll say hi. Generally, though, I would ask to try to keep it to English because there's a high chance I'm going to either mispronounce or misunderstand anything in any other language. And I cannot really moderate languages I can't read, so if I see somebody posting a lot in a different language, I'm going to have to just mute them. Yeah. Arlop says, yes, Lego Indiana Jones. Yeah, 2. Guess we could try to just go for a victory, but we'll just stick with what we've got. Here we have a game on Steam called Hinata in Hot Maze, which looks like nothing on Steam. Early access, $1.99. Bunch of languages. We'll say no to that. Here we have a game called Tank Golfing, which looks like nothing. It's free, so I guess the price is right. English only. Here we have a game called Carrot Girl Adventures, which this background art style is very distracting for a simplistic, probably a little too zoomed out platforming game. Yeah, I don't think I can put that on the fault list, particularly at $6.59. English, it says it has full audio. Here we have a game called Penguin Quest, which looks more like a Game Boy version of a platformer, but again, not really that interesting. A lot of these screenshots are also not helpful screenshots. $2.99. It's oddly tagged as a runner and time management game, so maybe it is an infinite runner. Regardless, it's still not good enough. Here we have World Rally Championship 10 FIA. I don't know what FIA stands for. It's already mixed reviewed though. $49.99. So I guess if you have a racing game that's getting poorly reviewed at the start, I can ignore that also as not being a particularly good product. Here we have a game called Suddenly Meow, which is just a match 3 game for $5.39. English only. Here we have Ultimate Physical Wrestling, which seems like it might be using the ring-shaped controller from the Wii, but I don't know how you'd even connect the Wii to the Pilates ring. Anyways, well, that's what it is. It's a Pilates ring, but I don't know how you connect the Wii Joy-Cons to a computer easily. Yeah, I think the graphics here are a little too rough. This is free to play, English and Japanese. But it does establish an interesting point that really the Pilates ring that came with Ring Fit Adventure should have had a lot more uses in other Switch games, and the idea of games potentially connecting to Joy-Cons on PC is not a terrible thought either.
Hey, this wasteland's a fixer-upper.
Arlop says, I met you through the Lego game Indiana Jones 2, and I don't speak English very well, but I like Madonna about music in English. Cheers. Yeah. Well, I'm a video game critic, so I really have nothing to say about musicians or music unless it's video game music, and barely do I have anything to say about that at all. Like, I really don't listen to music. I play video games instead. So that is completely out of my depth as far as that. But I'm glad for people who do like music that they find something they can enjoy. It would be pathetically awful if I tried to make a YouTube video criticizing music. Yeah, I would be considered probably one of the most ill-informed, wrongly opinionated music critics to ever exist if I tried to do that. I have no rhythm. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Castle Daybreak, which just looks like a survival game and kind of asset flippy game. You can see the heads-up display looks pretty rough, and there's a whole bunch of garbage on the screen. $5.49, English only. It's early access. You can get rid of that. Here we have a game called Loot Train, which doesn't look interesting. It's free though. English only. They're comparing it to The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, which I have 211 hours on, but in all fairness, I have been leaving the game running, so. Francisco Okoa Ortega comes up on the chat saying, hello, my friend. Hello, if he's talking to me, hello. Or maybe he's saying hello to Arlop. That's fine too. Here we have a game on Steam called Malum, which the visual polish here looks a little bit better. It's a shame that this is mixed. 66% positive. I'm gonna probably want to make an exception for this game, because this doesn't look like it's an asset flip game so much as it actually is trying to be a horror game. It's $4.99, single player with online co-op. I guess what I can do here is I put it on the fall list, see if it gets a little bit more reviews, see if those reviews address issues or give us a better idea. What could be happening here when I look at this video is that it could be a case of there just being a lot of weirdness and a lot of variety happening here. Instead of having one heavily focused upon monster, it seems like there's multiple monsters. Seems like maybe there's some furriness happening here as far as furries and people in animal suits. That might be yeah, even if you read the review here, ever wondered who would win in a fight between a stripper, leech zombie, and a furry? That seems like they're going fairly extreme in their art styles and their depictions. But I can't hate something just because it's weird. Weird for weirdness sake often doesn't work, sure, but sometimes weird does work and gives you something completely new and quite imaginative. Next, we have a game called Office Strike War Multiplayer Battle Royale, which looks like nothing. Looks like it's just player versus player. $1.97 with online PvP and single player. English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Timothy Leary's Mind Mirror, which looks like a really old, text game. And see, I wonder if this maybe is actually an old game and there's some relevance here, but a text game seems kind of crazy to play. Yeah. I don't think I could put this on the follow list and actually play this, particularly since I have no nostalgia of playing this game before. I don't even know if it really is a game. I don't know who Timothy Leary is. He may have been somebody who was popular at one point, but he's unrecognizable now. Here we have a game on Steam called Shindig, which somebody had linked to this and that didn't catch my attention before, and it still doesn't catch my attention. $6.79, English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Cargo Company, which looks just like a city sim management game with mixed reviews, early access, $8.49, whole bunch of languages.
I guess you're looking for a fight.
Here we have Total War Saga Troy, which is mixed, which I guess that means I can't put it on the follow list, even though I would consider maybe playing some of the Total War Saga games. $3.74, English, full audio, a whole bunch of other languages. Here we have Soko Cat Dungeon, which is a Sokoban box pushing puzzle, but it does have a level of polish on it more than most box pushing Sokoban games. It's $1.19, English and Portuguese, Brazil. I'll put that on the follow list. Here we have Jewel Match Solitaire Summertime, which just looks like a match 3 game, or no, not a match 3 game, a solitaire game. $8.49, English only, we can skip that. Here we have Big Flappy Tower versus Tiny Square, which just looks like it is basically a Flappy Bird clone, taking it to a different level, which does do something different, certainly, instead of having you just constantly run on run in from the left of the screen to the right of the screen. Seems like you have 3 flaps, and then in those 3 flaps you have to land on a safe point on the ground or hit a checkpoint to refill your flaps, which actually drastically changes what the game actually is. I think it's a little weird that these red pipes are the things you can't hit, though. I would expect that you could hit a red pipe. Let's see. Here's that game, The Magister. I think I'd heard people talk about this game, but hadn't really seen it yet. It is visually polished fairly well for what looks like a mostly card game or card-based RPG. So I think I want to give it a follow. $12.74 is fairly expensive, English only. Here we have Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which I think I would consider the Pathfinder series. This is very positive. It's $49.99, English full audio, and a bunch of other languages. So, yeah, that's really expensive, but potentially a pretty good game too, so I'll put it on the follow list. I'll have to do more research as far as the Pathfinder series in general, whether I've thought about it or not. Next we have Surgeon Simulator 2, which he's much more of a third-person experience, you would assume, based on all these images, but I don't know if that really is the case. In a lot of ways, I guess Surgeon Simulator 2 had to go in a weird, funny, different direction. Otherwise, it would just be more of the same. It's mostly positive. $19.99. English, allegedly full audio, and a bunch of other languages. One of the things that would be great about Surgeon Simulator 2, as it is looking to be a decent game, is that I could then get Surgeon Simulator 1, spotlight it for about an hour, and then feel justified in just never playing it again, and then playing Surgeon Simulator 2 instead, and having potentially a better experience or a different experience. Next we have a game called Botvinnik Chess Early USSR Championships, which just looks like a kind of ugly chess game. I've yet to find a really good chess game. Clearly you can see there's a whole bunch of Botvinnik chess versions that they're selling, English only, for this is 69 cents. Here we have a game called Squirrelmageddon. Shooting squirrels would be incredibly difficult, and this really feels like this is just a asset flip first person shooter game. Would be my guess as to what it really is. It is not easy to shoot squirrels or catch squirrels or do anything with squirrels. They are designed to get away from larger animals naturally. So
The uncharted desert awaits.
yeah, the best way that I've ever seen to get rid of squirrels is to have traps for squirrels of some sort, and then hope the squirrels get trapped in the trap, but even I've heard even that doesn't work all the time. So you don't really make a great game by asset flipping a squirrel and then trying to shoot it. I don't know why you would make this online co-op and free to play either. That doesn't make any sense. Here we have a game called Mysterious Warrior.
Eventually.
It doesn't look visually polished enough. Like this art style is a difficult style. You kind of need a duller background because there's a lot of brown mixing in with brown here. Seems like you might have mouse controls in your targeting and shooting, making it very difficult to shoot. This is $2.39 English and Russian. I'm gonna say no to it. Here we have a game called Battle Brigade, which looks like it's a fighting game. Probably isn't a good fighting game, but it doesn't look so awful that I can immediately dismiss it. It's early access, $9.79. We'll put it on the follow list. Let's see.
There's a lot more where that came from.
That.
Mean son of a gun, ain't ya?
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Project Winter for the PS4 and Switch launches September 16th.
You'll make a good test subject.
Don't recognize this game, Project Winter.
But this ends
I
here.
guess I've seen this trailer, but I feel like I just forgot everything. This definitely looks like it's just a top-down twin-stick shooter. Maybe it's player versus player in a frozen nightmare environment. Here we have a game on Steam called Pixasio 3, which I think we had already looked at this, and I'll just go ahead and dismiss it again. $2.39. GameDeveloper.com says the Take-Two Rockstar's parent company, Take-Two, has sued the modders behind the GTA reverse engineering project RE3, which reverse engineering is not illegal per se, depending on what country you're in, but that doesn't mean somebody can't sue you.
Ready to witness my true strength?
There's more than one. Think before you act.
Well, this ain't ideal, is it?
Let's see. Video Games Chronicle has an article here that 505 Games accepts that it didn't handle the next-gen upgrade in the best way. The publisher promises to handle future releases in a much better way. Which, yeah, accepting that you made a mistake is good, but on the other hand, they got away with it, so all they're really doing is saying, we promise not to pull that same scam a second time. We'll find a completely different scam. The only way you got a free next-gen upgrade was if you had bought the Ultimate Edition of Control, which you wouldn't have been able to buy the Ultimate Edition of Control if you bought it in the first few weeks of the game being released. So they were really benefiting people who were late to the party while not rewarding people who had pre-ordered and bought the game on day one. Plus, Control in particular was selling itself as one of the first games to use ray tracing and to look really pretty. So not getting a free upgrade that would make your console version of Control look even better is a spit in the face of the narrative you're trying to sell your game on. And that basically sucks. GameDeveloper.com also says that Toshiba has warned semiconductor shortage will continue to affect console makers. I'm not sure if Toshiba is making a lot of the chips in any of the consoles at the moment, but yeah, that's probably true. I would expect that the shortage will continue to affect a lot of things. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions, which just actually looks decent. So if this reviews well, this might be the first Mike Tyson Punch-Out type boxing game that actually is on Steam that I might be able to consider. Although maybe it's not really like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and much more it's just a beat-em-up or fighting game. It's tagged as a beat-em-up. It probably is more of a beat-em-up fighting game or boxing simulation. Which that is a weird thought in general, to play a fighting game but to be only able to throw punches and not kicks. This is $39.99, English full audio and several other languages, but yeah, that price kind of needs to go down. Also, really, really late to the party as far as any Apollo Creed movies or Rocky Balboa movies.
I'm not lonely. Not with everyone around me.
Let's see. GameDeveloper.com has this article, which honestly is barely news. They say Activision and Ubisoft pro-worker groups say that the management is ignoring calls for cultural reform. The problem with this particularly is that they're bringing up Ubisoft and Activision, which are two very separate stories. You can't just combine them together and generally say all video game companies suck, other than to generally say all video games companies suck, which I agree with, and I think can be easily proven on that, or almost all. If you say almost all, that's definitely true. But Ubisoft's issues and people complaining about Ubisoft is totally a different story than Activision's issues, and there has not been any new news or reason to mention Ubisoft's issues or repeat the Ubisoft story at all in months. This is yellow journalism, really, propaganda, where GameDeveloper.com has been specifically trying to push the narrative that Ubisoft was a problematic company to work for. And maybe it is, but the problem is it's never been proved. In fact, Ubisoft has literally gone to court and won court decisions saying, no, what is being claimed is wrong. This is a narrative that has been pushed specifically by, I think, one specific French newspaper, and it is getting repeated by GameDeveloper.com over and over again, who definitely have a dog in that fight and are trying to push the narrative that Ubisoft is a toxic work environment, which I'm totally willing to believe, and that you just kind of get some proof and some evidence. Whereas the Activision case is still hot news, and there are new actual facts to report on the Activision case. The state of California in the United States is actively investigating Activision. That there is, to my knowledge, no government body investigating Ubisoft in France. If there is somebody investigating them, it's definitely not as big of news. So, talking about the Activision case, since there is new news that's coming out when new news comes out, that's fine. It is still very much a case here that you are directly publishing the propaganda without investigating yourself by of a better Ubisoft and a better Activision Blizz King, which I think, yeah, these are literally just Twitter accounts. So you're just getting your news off Twitter without researching anything. And that's just not really news. And GameDeveloper.com, as a website that is that seems like it's trying to make a better video game company, video game community anyways, as far as game development, doesn't really follow towards that goal when they are just pushing the narrative that the entire industry sucks. Because at a certain point you have to take an opinion, take a side. Either you believe all of the video game companies suck so much that video games should just not exist, which gamers are not going to agree to that, certainly. Or you say some companies suck and some don't, and then you report on actual news when it happens. But if you're just pushing the narrative and trying to make the video game industry in general fail, which it often feels like a lot of mainstream video game media is trying to do, is that they're just trying to wreck the entire gaming industry. I don't know why you're trying to, why you would do that, other than you've just gone so far up the SJW ladder that you can no longer see reality. Yeah, that is in general, it is dangerously getting to the point where it is just cancel culture happening, and really it is already at that point. Just a new kind of cancel culture specifically for the video game industry, where they are trying to cancel not anyone specific, just everybody, every video game company, every video game that ever existed. If they don't, which, I mean, you ruin gaming at that point, and then there were no games at all. And in all fairness, that is probably the same argument as far as the problems in Hollywood, is that if you expose all the problems in Hollywood, maybe there won't be Hollywood movies. I don't think it's quite the same thing, though, because the problems that have been exposed in Hollywood feel very bad, whereas half of the complaints about game companies and game developers are petty complaints that you would see in any job.
Feel the emptiness.
Yeah, and we've got to work very hard to shift and sift through the petty complaints to legitimate grievances, as far as who are the bad guys and what the bad guys are actually
There's a
doing.
lot more where that came from.
Dare to find me? Oh, a brave soul.
Yeah, I love this job. Of course I do.
Moving on from that little rant, video game developer has an article saying you can now request a Steam Deck development kit for developers, obviously. I don't think there'd be really a reason why you would want a dev kit, because it won't be the final version. It probably won't be supported after as well or in the same way as the final product. You might need a special development account to order it from Steam, or a special development account to actually install any apps on it. Video Games Chronicles says a Battlefield Mobile has appeared on the Google Play Store. If that interests you, check that out. I kind of don't care. And then September 2021's PlayStation Plus games have been confirmed. You get Overcooked All You Can Eat, Hitman 2, and Predator Hunting Grounds. And with that, that is all the news I have, so I'm just going to kind of quickly go through my main Twitter feed and see if there's any other news that really needs to be talked about, and then we're just gonna wrap up, because yeah, I don't want to go long, particularly after a power outage and having to take a break in the middle there.
This victory is a testament to your strength.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna see any new news. But I'm gonna scroll down. I guess I only really need to go about 2 hours. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any new news. So that's going to be it for the stream. Thank you to Arlop and Francisco Ochoa Ortega, if I'm pronouncing that right, for hopping onto the chat and saying hi. Thank you for watching. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.